info, my co-moderators today. Lifelong learning goes beyond the traditional degree, encouraging continuous education and skill development throughout one's life. It's essential for staying relevant in a rapidly changing world, adapting to new technologies, and remaining competitive in the job market. This approach encourages a mindset of continuous growth and a willingness to embrace new knowledge and skills, regardless of your age or educational background. At today's event, we will highlight mentorship, mental wellness, conversational learning, and alternative credentials. Today, we will be hearing from some great speakers. The keynote speaker is Eric Guthrie, a partner at the Cogent Law Group, president and CEO of Better Me, Better Me, director of training programs at Government Blockchain Association, and the best-selling author of Blockchain Are Done. The four panelists are Scott Maloney, Sean Terry Kendrick, Chanel Daniels, and Rajana Mitra. Scott Maloney is a professional speaker who speaks at venues across the country, and he is a member of various organizations for performers such as NCAA, NACA, SEPA, and many more organizations. Sean Terry Kendrick is an 11-year Marine veteran, dynamic and mission-driven advocate, and a trainer with over 17 years of experience, leading transformative programs in trauma response, mental health education, and leadership development. Chanel Daniels has a background in health policy administration and a current focus on emergency management. She's a grants writer, and her track record includes securing funding pivotal for public health initiatives, collaborating closely with government agencies, and supporting social projects that safeguard the welfare of diverse populations. And Rajana Mitra is a dynamic and relationship-focused operations leader with experience supporting 50-plus venues across the U.S., Canada, and the UK, known for driving regional and national scale through venue expansion, merchandise logistics, and cross-term coordination. The keynote speaker, Eric Guthrie, will be speaking about the future of business, how blockchain, cryptos, and AI are redefining professional development. So let me give him the floor. Welcome, Eric Guthrie.
Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Eric Guthrie. It's an honor to be speaking in front of you today. Thank you for ADollarClass for this opportunity to present. I'll tell you a bit about myself and then I'll jump right into it. The introduction was spot on. Attorney with the Cogent Law Group, a partner with the Cogent Law Group. I wrote the book Blockchain or Die, Amazon #1 bestseller 7 times, and a director of training programs for the Government Blockchain Association. I've done speaking all over the world, and this has become my main way I do my professional development. And I'll tell you my story, so hopefully you can learn from that. I learned about Bitcoin in 2016. I was in the back of an Uber, and this story really communicates how you can learn things when it's not even part of what you're being engaged in. And the Uber driver told me about his use of Bitcoin in gaming. Didn't pay much attention to it, but he told me he made a lot of money off of it when he sold it for like 50 cents. So fast forward about a year later, I'm at a retirement event and some folks talking about Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin was worth $3,000 at the time. And I was like, wow, to go from 50 cents to $3,000 is very impressive. And I've done a lot of investment in various investment vehicles, commodities, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, etc. So I decided to research it, and I spent 3 days solid, barely ate, barely slept, just reading about this, learning about it. And I said, at the end, I'm in. But here's where it gets part of this presentation. I was not just going to be part of it from an investment standpoint. I wanted to be part of it from a professional development standpoint as well. So I decided to incorporate not just Bitcoin, but blockchain technology into my career. And the first thing I did was I just learned as much as I could. And I'm going to try to have this be a really active learning session for you. And the 3 main points I have are learn, network, and use. So we're in the learn phase. I learned as much as I could. I read as much as I could, and I tried to understand as much as I could. But I also had to figure out how to incorporate it into what I do as an attorney, as a trainer, as a global trainer. And I really learned how to create those opportunities for myself. And that's when I get to phase two, network. Back then, there weren't that many networks. It was just kind of starting out. Now there's a whole lot more. But I joined organizations where I, learned from some folks that were in even before me, but also some folks that were, doing this full time. And that network really developed my abilities to really incorporate that into my legal and training career. And that's how I got involved with the Government Blockchain Association. And part of that network, a key point I want everyone to really understand is volunteering is important. If you don't have the experience or you don't have the knowledge, the best way to get involved is to volunteer. And in that way, you can learn from the other folks real time and become engaged with whatever that technology is, whether it's blockchain, crypto, or AI. Volunteering wasn't something that happened overnight. It took probably a couple of years to really get the experience I needed. But in the meantime, I was writing this, right? And that's when you get to use, right? So we discussed learn, we discussed network. Now we're going to discuss use. And use is important because you can do all the learning, you can do all the networking, but if you don't use it, then all you've done is really just an academic exercise. So this last part is really where the rubber hits the road. Now, there's many ways you can use it, but in part is based on your skills, your ability, and your time to be able to commit to this. So for me, writing a book, doing book signings, public speeches, and I began to get clients. Writing a book is an excellent way to really put out, it's like a super business card, right? Because you're marketing yourself without even marketing yourself. Your book is doing the work for you. And footnote, my next book, Blockchain That Harder, is coming out next month. So the other thing about use is you've got to stay current. You cannot rely on what you learned last year or year before. You've got to be prepared what's happening tomorrow, okay? So when you're in the use phase, you have to really put yourself in a position to be on top of all the information you can while you're networking yourself. Now, that doesn't have to be a book. You can do blogging, you can do video blogging. You can actually create, if you have the experience and time and the folks behind you, you can create your own cryptocurrency or your own blockchain, right? And in that sense, you're really becoming a super user because now you're creating a product that has monetization to it, right? It's going to make money. The book doesn't really make me that much money. The book puts me in rooms with people to make more money with them, right? Clients, large corporations, et cetera, not just U.S., domestic as well, right? So the use portion is so important. And what I advise folks to do in the use section is to just be creative. Use your skills, right? You don't have to be an attorney. You don't have to be a programmer. I've known folks that have used this kind of environment to create products that are good for event planning, like this event we're doing right now. I've known folks that have used this to do music. I know folks, I've had clients that, I've been, helping put their music on blockchains and on NFTs, right? So they're benefiting from it. They don't know how to code. They don't know, how to use it, but they partner with the people that do to put their product out there. And that's how they really impact their professional development. But I want to say one thing real quick about professional development. If you are someone that's interested in bringing this to your job, not just to be an entrepreneur, you can do that too, right? I mean, there are companies out there that would really love to be able to use blockchain or AI or crypto. But you know what the answer I get most commonly about it? I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to use it. And then you say, well, let me help you incorporate it into your business, right? If you're an employee, it may mean you became a team leader. You may become a manager of the project, right? And if it's successful, you have now set yourself apart from everybody else because you brought a new technology into the business and you created a professional development path for yourself to achieving higher employment status at that company. And the real important part is this, right? You really have to sell your company on the value proposition on whatever that technology is. So whether it's crypto, blockchain, or AI, and I'm gonna talk about AI more specifically in a second. You have to tell them why it's so important. What's the benefit to them? What's the value to them? Because people tend to not adopt what they don't understand. You have to help them understand, which is probably one of my greatest amounts of time I spend with new clients, is helping them understand not just the basics, but the intricacies of what we're about to get into. Not just from a legal side, but also from a business development side as well. Now, once they understand that, they're more on board, right? But it's that process that takes some time and some communication and showing your knowledge, what you learned in the network side. And I'm going to go back to network for a second. If you do not have the ability to do all those things yourself, you can go back to your network that you created. And I use coders. I use CPAs all the time that have experience in the crypto and blockchain world. I use a lot of folks in my network to bring to my clients to say, this guy can do this woman can do that, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the network also becomes your ability to bring in new clients, a new business, or to even bring it to your company and use it to make a professional development path for yourself. I don't know how much time I have left, but I'm going to close out with a few things. AI, it has become a monster of a technology. And I say that because it's really taken all the predecessors, the internet, advanced computing, et cetera, and it's brought it all together. And in a way, AI is becoming more of a user-friendly technology than blockchain. Why do I say that? Well, because you can use AI so seamlessly. You can just go on Gemini or ChatGPT and just start typing in, and you're using AI. You don't have to download a wallet. You don't have to download MetaMask. You don't have to create cryptos or tokens. You're already doing it, but you're doing it in a way that's much easier. User adoption and user interface are two very important terms when it comes to new technologies. And if you have the ability to show people, like I think that I do, how to improve user adoption, user interface, you've made yourself valuable. You've added to your professional development skills. Now, AI has become so important now. If you go on job boards and you type in AI, you will see a whole string of jobs that are available for you to apply for in the AI world. The question is, do you qualify for them, right? Well, here's where we go back to our 3 bullet points. Learn, network, and use, right? If you're able to learn the AI protocols and how to use AI, if you build an AI network, well, guess what? You may learn about the jobs in the network. And if you use it, that experience can be used to show you're qualified for a job. So I can't really, speak enough about the learn, network, use components, because they really do create opportunities for you from a professional development standpoint, whether you're an entrepreneur or it's part of your employment objectives to, achieve higher heights in your employment. So are we taking questions?
We're taking questions towards the end.
Okay. So how much time do I have left?
You have 10 more minutes.
10 minutes? Okay. So I'll tell you another story about the learn, network, and use. I had a client of mine that he was very, very new to the blockchain and crypto space. And he was a client by training, not by entrepreneurship. And he took my course and he got a certification. And then he said, I'm going to take this to my job and I'm going to see what happens. This is going back pre-pandemic when I was teaching courses more in person. Then he reached back out to me and said, Eric, I took this to my employer and they're interested. What should I do? And I said, well, and there was no charge for this. It was totally, something I volunteered to do. I said, let's create a business case for your employer. What does your company do? How does your company operate? What are the company challenges? And how can blockchain solve them? So we put together, and we spent a considerable amount of time putting together a use case, a blockchain use case for the employer. And he presented it, and they were extremely impressed with what he presented. And at that point in time, we said, well, now you have to figure out what it's going to cost to do a blockchain product for them. So we had to go back and then do a cost analysis, which really wasn't very expensive, because the first thing we did was we said, okay, we need a development team. So we created a list of people we needed to be on the team. And on that team, we had a developer, we had a communications person, we had a finance person, and I think we had somebody from legal to make sure that all of the laws were being properly followed. And that team created the genesis, the seed for their first blockchain project. Now, I didn't hear from him since then. It was the COVID, everything happened, so we disconnected. But I took that as a really good test case for how you can take this to your employer and you can use it to be able to further your career with that employer. Now, one of the morals of the story is, one, other than learn, network, and use, is take that chance. Reach out to that person you think that's going to be receptive to what you're doing, right? And have all of your ducks in a row, right? If you don't have all your ducks in a row, you're not going to get past the second sentence, right? You have to have, and preferably, have something in writing, have something written down, so they can show how serious you are and you've done your homework. And once you've done that, you put yourself in what I would call rarefied air, right? Because they know now you're serious and they're going to pay attention to you. So that story is really important, because if you're on the employment side, that's a roadmap for how you can actually begin to move the needle for your professional development at that company. Now, from the AI standpoint, it's a little different, because you don't have to educate them so much on blockchain technology. You know what I found most interesting about educating employees about AI is the fear that AI is going to remove jobs from their company. And from my perspective, there is probably some truth to that, but that's not the full story of AI, right? The full story of AI is AI still needs human interface. AI still needs human involvement, right? So while it's going to streamline and make things more efficient, if it's bringing in new business, if it's creating new efficiencies in your organization, then guess what? The employees can do other stuff that needs to be done that they were doing when things were less efficient. So it really can expand things from a efficiency standpoint, but also from a profitability standpoint as well, right? So from what I always preach with AI is, the AI is not necessarily a threat to jobs. Here's the threat to AI. The threat to AI is companies that don't use it against companies that do use it. Because the companies that are using it, I guarantee you, are having the advantage in the marketplace, right? And that's the message with AI, a little more so than blockchain, because it's easier to understand and to get involved with AI, right? But if you're in professional development, if you're really looking to develop yourself, AI is another way you can do it. You can do both lanes. I can say it's a little challenging to do both lanes, because there's just so much learned. I'm not even going to get into quantum computing, because that's a whole nother conversation. But there are certain connections between blockchain and AI. There are blockchain companies with AI components that have a cryptocurrency. So all three kind of come into one place. Not that many, but they exist out there, right? So I don't even use AI that much. My primary focus is crypto and blockchain, but I am ramping up my AI, because I can tell you right now, it's going to be a major force in the corporate world, in the small business world, in the government world, in the nonprofit world, in the collegiate university world. There's going to be AI classrooms. I'm actually designed an AI blockchain training, right? that right now I'm working with some universities on to incorporate as a certification course and then perhaps uh, a degree course. So, and another thing I'll say this, and how much time I have left, but start small. I'll tell you this story. There was one class where I actually have people create blockchain and crypto products and projects as part of the less part of the trend. It's kind of like Shark Tank, if you will. They develop it and then we critique it. And they developed this blockchain crypto product that it involved satellites and it involved uh, you know uh, uh, interfacing with every cell phone on Earth. So I just sat there and I was like, I said, think small. And so then we were done. I said, okay, let me answer this question. How are you going to get these satellites up into space? And I said, and this is before SpaceX and the other. I said, you need to have a partnership with NASA. And I can tell you right now, the product use design is going to cost you about $100 million. So when I said think small, right? So start small, because what happens is, and this is another really important lesson I'll share with all of you, not just from my client perspective, but from other attorneys that I talk to as well as venture capitalists. The number one reason why blockchain companies fail is lack of funding, lack of resources. So be smart when you're designing your project or when you're putting together something for your employer, because if you put together a $20 million project for a company that's worth $20 million, it's going to get a hard no, right? So you want to start small and build from that smallness to greater things. Because if you start too big, if you start at the top of the price and top of the technology and top of the way it's supposed to be used, you're setting yourself up for failure. So start small, and that way you can build from that. If you can start projects that are easy to accomplish, guess what? You take that win and you go on to the next bigger one, and you take that win and you go on to the next bigger one. Because starting small gives you the ability to create successes faster and easier with less money, and those wins create more successes. So I don't know if I've come up to my time, Sarah.
Oh, you're right on.
I'm good. Okay. So I'll close with this. I'm probably in my closing time frame right now. So I'll close with this. Learn, network, and use. I have never seen that formula fail with any of my trainees or any of my clients. Okay. Where I've seen it fail is where people try and not do one or the other. If you don't learn and you start networking, people are going to say, this guy doesn't know anything. This one doesn't know anything. If you learn and go right to use, you don't have a network to rely on. You don't have people you can call to answer questions. You don't have people you can call to kind of bounce things off of. You don't have a network where you can use to say, I need this, I need that, right? And then if you learn and network but don't use, again, you just engage in an academic exercise. And if you want to do that, that's entirely fine, right? And that's up to you to make that choice. But you're not going to get engaged in true professional development, true entrepreneurial success if you don't use. Use is where it all comes together, right? You don't have to write a book. You don't have to, do any of these others. You don't even have to I haven't created one crypto yet. I'm actually working on my first one right now with a client. We're doing a partnership, but I've been involved in this space since 2017. I have not created one crypto yet until recently, because I didn't have an idea that I thought would work. Because here's the other thing I'll say, and I swear I'm gonna wrap up after this. Do not create something that already exists unless you can do it way, way better, right? Because there's some folks that come to me with all these ideas, and I have 3 tests. 1, would I use it? Now that doesn't hit every crypto or every business pitch, but that's the first one. 2, is it something that gives benefit to the business or to the global community, right? What's the benefit? Does it solve a problem, or does it make more efficiencies? And 3, is it affordable? Again, think small, right? If you're coming at me with this big project, and I say, great, how much money do you have? Well, I really don't have that much. You know, you really want then. I would advise folks that don't have a lot of money to go on the informational side and do the blogging and do the networking and get involved that way. And maybe you'll find someone, a VC or angel funder, that will be able to help you with your project. But clients that come to me with no money, that with this big idea, it's not going to go anywhere because you need money to really make these kinds of things happen. So, Sarah, I will close there, and I will be ready for questions whenever the room is open for them.
Sounds good. Thank you, Eric Gunther, again for that informative and engaging presentation. I'm sure we all know to learn, network, and use now. Let's hear from some of our panelists next. The first panelist is Scott Maloney, who will be speaking about mentors beyond academia, building future-focused guidance, and diving into real-life planning, decision-making, and personal growth. So let me give them the floor.
All right, can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Good stuff. Well, from the top, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank ADollarClass Incorporated for the chance to address everyone on this conference. Now, I'm hoping that over the next few minutes, you get an understanding of my unique profession and my even uniquer journey that led me to it. Now, let me introduce myself. My name is Scott Maloney, and I am a motivational speaker, which is not your typical career. And the journey that brought me to where I am today, from a professional standpoint, is far from typical. In fact, it started with one choice in college. My bad. Can you hear that?
Right. Yes.
All right. Okay. All right. In fact, what led me to where I am professionally, it started with one choice in college that nearly ended my life. See, during my senior year of college, I suffered a severe traumatic brain injury, or TBI, after falling 3 stories while under the influence of alcohol. As a result of a single decision, the trajectory of my life was changed forever. A single decision that led to every parent's worst nightmare, regardless of age, gender, orientation, color, creed, or cultural background. Every parent's worst nightmare is to receive that phone call from the campus police department that says your child has been hurt on campus and that you should get to the hospital ASAP, and that's the only info they can give you. And when my folks got to the ER at almost 3 o'clock in the morning, they were told the news that no parent should hear. Your child is gone. It's clinically brain dead. But here's the thing. I wasn't dead. You can call me, I've been called a lot of things, but you can't call me dead. After several brain surgeries, a fasciotomy, a craniotomy, and after over 3 weeks in a coma, months in a semi-coma, and after the long hospital stay, and after the years of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, I learned a lot of life lessons about resiliency and responsibility. But before I could build a career path, I had to rebuild my life from scratch. My future went from being concerned with my GPA to being concerned with my TBI. After I learned those lessons, I learned even more things that I never learned in the classroom. How to plan for real life, how to make decisions, and how to create a personal brand that would open doors. Now, when I used to think of a brand, I thought of the Nike Swish or the McDonald's Golden Arches or Apple's Apple. I've come to learn that sometimes a brand is when you're branded for your worst moment or your biggest mistake. Case in point, when people speak about me, even to this day, I'll condense it. I'm described as Scott. He's the guy that fell out of a window in college and he was never the same. or something along those lines. I can't change how others describe me. I've come to accept that. But when I hold on to the optimism, I think in some aspects, I may be better than I was before. I make good choices. I'm responsible, and I'm well aware, very well aware, that no one is invincible, which is a lesson I learned the hard way. I'm gonna get off on go on a small tangent. I remember years ago, a woman that I hadn't seen since high school, she actually said, "Oh, Scott, I thought you died." First I thought to myself, well, that's a weird way to start a conversation. Then I said something along the lines of, well, I didn't. That was my brand. My brand was being dead. And TBI was my scarlet letter. I realized I could either accept that label or rewrite it. So after my recovery, which is still ongoing, there's a saying that recovery is a marathon, not a sprint. And I know that for sure. But after my immediate recovery, an employee at my school, who was also a good friend's mother, she suggested that I tell the story to the undergrads, to the student body in my own words. I was apprehensive. I mean, I wasn't the best public speaker. I was unpolished and still healing. I was still undergoing therapy. But she assured me that most of the students already knew what had happened to me. But they'd want to hear it from me, like literally from the horse's mouth kind of thing. Then she casually mentioned that I'd get paid. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. That'd be cool. So in April of 2006, I gave my first talk at my alma mater, Becker College in Worcester, Massachusetts, which is where I was hurt, to an auditorium full of students. That one event led to invitations from other schools in the Worcester area. And eventually I was invited to speak to every high school in Providence, Rhode Island. Now, I should clarify, this wasn't some rapid fire career path. These gigs didn't roll in overnight. They came months, sometimes years apart. And I'm condensing that because, I only have a few minutes. I respect the few minutes I had to tell you about what I learned outside the classroom. So just imagine years of sending out emails, leaving voicemails, reaching out on LinkedIn and getting the class. Thanks for your message. We'll be in touch. Most weren't in touch. After sharing my story to anyone that would listen, often for free, after years of hard work and refining my message, I eventually built a career traveling the country with a mix of humor, honesty, emotion, and life lessons that I learned in my travels and life experiences to inspire audiences to make better choices, to live intentionally, and appreciate and truly believe in the power of positive thinking. So there's a very successful speaker named Victor Antonio Gonzalez. I wonder if he's watching. He gives a simple advice that I'd give to someone who wants to be successful in any field that they're pursuing. Pretty simple advice, really. Find someone you aspire to have the same, if not more, success in, and replicate their SOP or their standard operating procedure, but do it in your own unique, customized style, and personalized way. For example, the example I give is the OG QB GOAT. You know that is the GOAT, Tom Brady. As a kid, he wanted to be just like Joe Montana. And through years of discipline and a great work ethic, he didn't achieve the level of success that Montana had. He surpassed it by a lot. Just like Brady's passion is football on the gridiron, my passion is speaking to audiences on stage, like Tony Robbins, James Malinchak, and Brittany Richmond. So when I was beginning to succeed, and to clarify, I'm 100% not comparing myself to Brady. but you can kind of see the correlation of the relationship. I took Brittany and Alan Check and Tony Robbins' expertise in the speaking industry, and I would adopt that business practice off stage and use my own style when speaking on stage. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool. I didn't learn these lessons in the classroom, and if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't have to. I learned. I went through a terrible experience, the hardest possible way, and I hope that you don't have to. So let's fast forward to the present day. I've spoken to over 80,000 individuals from all walks of life in 28 states. And sharing my story is my passion in every sense of the word. And if I make the difference in just one life, it's a story worth telling. So here's what I'd like you to remember. Here's the takeaway. Start seeking mentors, just like role models, but kind of professional or business role models. And even if they don't know they are one to you, if they're a kind person, a person of good moral fiber, you're likely flattered. Seek someone who can help your professional life, not just your academics. And when you're ready, if and when you're ready, I'm going to be optimistic. When you're ready, become that mentor to someone else. So I'll summarize what I learned from my senior year of college to the present day. Here's my summary. Life is seldom linear. And I've been asked by countless times by people, can you guys see me okay? I can't see myself.
Yes.
Okay. I've been asked countless times by people who want to speak like I do, how to get started. And I always tell them that it takes time and a whole lot of work. It doesn't just happen overnight. There's no such thing as an overnight success, in my opinion. They work for it. Well, people who win the lottery, but I'm getting off here. When I say that, it takes time and a whole lot of work, it doesn't happen overnight, that's not the answer people want to hear. That's how it is in my line of work and in most professional fields. Now, I can't espouse any professional advice in any other field, other than my own. So as a speaker, first, you need to figure out the specific type of people you want to help. The students, veterans, the homeless veterans, TBI survivors, or anyone that has faced adversity. Then you got to create a good elevator pitch to sum up what you do. And you have to learn it. You have to memorize it. Most importantly, you have to do it. You got to walk that talk. You got to be the verb, not the noun. There was a successful screenwriter named Douglas Adams. You might have heard of him. He had a number of quotes, but one that really hits the nail on the head. He said, "I may not have gone where I intended to go, but I think I ended up where I needed to be." I can relate to that. That sums up my journey. So to wrap it up, I'd like to thank ADollarClass Incorporated for allowing me the opportunity to speak today. And I really hope you got something. I hope you have a little more understanding of my profession and the impact that mentors have had on me. If you'd like to continue the conversation, I'd love to hear from you. I know we have the questions and answers at the end. But if you have any questions that you want to ask me individually, I'd love to hear from you. Just check out scottmaloney.com or connect with me on social media, which are linked to my site as well. So I hope everyone has a great rest of the conference, a great day, and an even better tomorrow. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Scott Maloney, for sharing with us. And I'm sure we all learned so much. Let's hear from our next panelist, Sean Terry Hendrick. She will be speaking on intersection of trauma and mental health, and also discuss effective coping mechanisms and support systems. So let me get present.
Hello, everyone. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
So I want to thank you to ADollarClass for hosting me today. I want to talk to you about trauma and how it impacts your mental health and coping mechanisms and support systems that can help you during your journey to lifelong learning. So for those of you listening, I want you to take a moment and close your eyes. Imagine you're carrying a backpack, but instead of books and learning material, it's filled with invisible bricks. Each one a past experience of pain, loss, or fear. This could be the loss of a loved one, or physical, mental, emotional abuse, childhood trauma, or surviving a traumatic event. Now you're carrying this backpack everywhere you go. To class, as you're paying attention to your teacher. You're carrying this backpack to work. When you get home and you want to decompress and you're spending time with your loved ones or your children, you're still wearing this backpack. You're taking it with you on outings with friends or family, while grocery shopping, while cooking dinner. And before you lay down and fall asleep, you can't take it off because trauma never takes a break. So you're wearing it in bed with you. So I want you to think about how heavy this backpack is now. Now, imagine the impact of the weight of this backpack and what it's going to have on your body over time. So I want you to try to imagine that tension that you feel in your shoulders, the headaches that just started out of nowhere, now they're constant, that sense of fatigue that you can't shake. Mentally, you're starting to have racing thoughts. You're having difficulty concentrating. You're easily irritable, or maybe you feel nothing at all. Emotionally, you may feel a lingering sadness that won't go away, or surprising outbursts of anger, or a deep sense of emptiness. And spiritually and relationally, it can create distance between you and your loved ones, between you and your sense of purpose, your sense of being, even between you and yourself. So the heavier the load, the harder it becomes to connect, to trust, and to feel safe. This is what it means to carry unresolved trauma. It's when that weight of past pain is carried for years, sometimes decades, and it shapes our lives long after the original event has occurred. And it doesn't just live in the past, it shows up in your present life, in every part of your life. And it seems that the more you try to compress that pain, that unresolved trauma, the more it bleeds over into other areas of your life. And for many people, it becomes impossible to put that backpack down. You get used to carrying your trauma. So I want you to take a moment and open your eyes. Take a few deep breaths, count to 4, slowly, and come back to what is. So here's what I know. Trauma is often viewed as something that happens once and then it ends. But for many people, trauma doesn't stay in the past, it lingers. And research shows that nearly 70% of adults will experience trauma, but few will receive support to process it. But there is good news. Trauma does not have to define us. There are ways to begin unpacking that backpack brick by brick through coping mechanisms, support systems, and healing practices that remind us we don't have to carry it alone. So what do we do when the backpack feels too heavy to carry? Coping with trauma and life challenges often requires a combination of intentional practice and supportive relationship. We're talking about mind-body practices such as mindfulness, breathing exercises, journaling, or regular exercise can actually help regulate individual emotions. For example, Just pausing to take 5 deep breaths in a stressful moment and keeping a gratitude journal or going for a daily walk all can release tension. Now, there are healthy outlets like therapy, and we know that there is a stigma associated with therapy. But take a moment to think about the times where you may have vented to a friend or a loved one about something that's bothering you. That's what therapy is, creating a safe space between you and another consenting individual to discuss that trauma, to discuss the things that burden you, to maybe alleviate the pains that are associated with depression and anxiety. Support groups are very helpful. You are in an environment in which you and other individuals who may be struggling with similar things can all speak on the things that you're going through and all share the coping skills that you learned along the way in your journey. You also have things such as creative expression, such as writing, or maybe painting or drawing. I myself picked up painting with watercolors when going through a stressful time, and it became a very healthy outlet for me. Now, some of us, we also find comfort in numbers, and that's why I mentioned support groups earlier. A lot of people like to share their story in a survivors group or attend weekly therapy sessions. And that is used as a way to express emotions that may be difficult to verbalize in other areas. Even small daily habits play a powerful role, like maintaining good sleep hygiene by turning off our devices before bed. Now, if you're like me, sometimes you like to use your phone to scroll or maybe plan for the next day. But it is actually proven that if you turn your devices off and limit the exposure to blue light prior to bedtime, at least an hour prior, your sleep may improve over time. Now, these things play a very powerful role in how we show up during the day. So imagine having that trauma, that backpack, you're carrying it around and you're not sleeping. That's another thing that tends to affect our mental health, a lack of sleep. Now, choosing nutritious meals are often overlooked, but these things help us to sustain energy that we need throughout the day. At least eating once or twice a day, 3 times a day, snacking casually on fruits and vegetables, things that actually feed our mind. These are the things that we should try to focus on. And the most important thing that I want to list is setting boundaries. Setting boundaries with the people that we know, people that we love, and even people that we don't know who we may encounter on a daily basis. Saying no to extra commitments that can reduce stress and also build resilience. It is important to establish boundaries regardless of the person that you're engaging with. A lot of the times we find it difficult to establish boundaries with family members because they're family. But we have to remember that if we don't put ourselves first, someone else will. So that is why it is extremely important to establish boundaries. Support systems are just as vital, beginning with professional resources like trauma-informed counseling or therapy that helps individuals navigate healing in structured ways. One form of therapy could be prolonged exposure therapy, where an individual is exposed to certain areas of trauma in their life over and over again, and they're able to process that in a safe space with a therapist and other support systems that they may need. Personal networks like family, close friends, and mentors, or safe communities offer encouragement and a sense of belonging. Like, for instance, calling a trusted friend after a difficult day, or leaning on a mentor for guidance. And finally, last but not least, faith and spirituality often provide grounding through prayer, meditation, or reflective practices. Someone may pray each morning for strength, or meditate to center them, or participate in faith-based gatherings such as prayers that remind them they are not alone in their journey. To have spiritual practices in place is definitely crucial to grounding yourself as an individual when going through mental health struggles. It allows you the opportunity to be grounded so that you may actually stop and focus on the emotions that you have instead of suppressing those emotions for them to bleed over at a later time. Now, the truth is, the backpack may always be a part of your journey, but it doesn't have to weigh you down forever. With coping strategies and supportive people, you can take out the bricks one by one. Trauma shapes us, but it does not define us. And healing is possible. And it begins when we acknowledge the weight and ask for help and choose to keep moving forward. I want to leave you with a short story about how I overcame a very tough time when pursuing my master's degree at Penn State. I was struggling. I was a full-time mom. I was working full-time. I was an active duty service member, and everything was just becoming too much. I was dealing with depression. I was dealing with anxiety. And as a active duty Marine, it was my job to ensure the individuals who were under my charge were cared for. But there was rarely any time to actually take care of myself and engage in those healthy self-care practices. It wasn't until I prepared to write a very simple paper on a philosophy that we've been studying in class, and I could not do it. I had to admit to myself that I needed more help that I could give myself in that moment. And so I spoke with my school counselor, who put me in touch with the academic advisor, who told me that it was okay to ask for help and that it was okay to not be okay. They provided multiple resources and provided me with an extended leave of absence from my degree program, which allowed me to gather myself, to engage in healthy self-care practices, to begin meditation, to work out at the gym, to go to therapy and have a healthy outlet for the unhealthy thoughts that I was having. And it worked. And I was actually able to go back to school and earn my degree less than 4 months after that leave of absence, because I was able to ask for help and I leaned on the support system around me to get back up. So I want to thank you all for taking a moment to listen to me. And I hope that you gained some helpful knowledge through this engagement. And I look forward to seeing your questions towards the end. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean, Harry, Kendra. We learned so much, and thank you for sharing. Let's move on to our next panelist, Chanel Daniels. She will be speaking on Talk to Learn, Unlocking the Power of Conversational Learning, and exploring how conversational learning can help individuals grow. So let me give Chanel Daniels the floor.
Chanel Daniels, and today's topic is about conversational learning and the power of dialogue and peer learning. And let me start off by asking a relatable question. How many of us had that aha moment? Like when you're speaking with a friend or a colleague or a classmate and they're discussing group projects, and the way they're explaining it to you, you know, it may involve gestures, relatable communication, and you're like, wow, I get it. And you understand it a lot more different than you would have if you were reading a book or looking through articles or journals or things like that. But in some conversations with someone else, it's almost like a light bulb goes off. So a little bit about me. As someone who has worked in grant compliance, policy, and most importantly, I'm studying contract law right now in preparation for law school, and I am aware of how quickly I can learn information when I'm talking out loud and I'm absorbing these ideas, or when I'm working with my material in group sessions, or if I have someone that's there that's helping me study along the way. I actually gain more information when I'm speaking with someone, when I'm engaging in conversation. So I know that that's a technique for me, especially when studying contract law, because it's a completely different language. And if you don't understand how the legal system operates when you're learning about contract law, it's very hard to absorb the information. So it's really good sometimes when you're speaking with, maybe more intimate settings, one-on-one conversations, and things like that can actually help retain the information. So what is conversational learning? When I say conversational learning, I don't just mean small talk. It's about turning passive information into active knowledge. It happens in two ways. Through dialogue-based platforms like study groups or even AI tutors can help immensely. And through informal peer learning. That's like I explained to you when a colleague or a classmate or a friend explains something in plain language. And in plain language, it just basically just means how you interpret information. Do you need gestures? Would you understand better if there were proctors or just anything like that that will help aid when it comes to absorbing the information and retaining it as well? So in the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about why this works. And these are the three key elements as I explained prior. Let's talk about this method and how it works. First, it builds confidence. You validate your knowledge by saying it out loud. I know that works for me. And second, it creates clarity. It explains, enforcing, simplifies, and listening, and it shows you a new perspective on how to just pretty much view information. And third, it boosts retention in conversations, especially when you tie it to the story and example, and it makes the learning experience a lot better. And I know, studying contract law, that I can actually take real life information and relate it to the material that I'm currently studying. And that's also what helps me retain information as well. So when I'm studying, I'm able to say, oh, okay, wow, I get this. I had this experience as well. And so in terms of confidence grows when people have a chance to test their knowledge in conversation. For example, most of my undergrad study consists of presentations. I felt more secure discussing the assignments with my group. That way it allowed me to engage in constructive feedback and learn pretty much learn new ways of learning. And that's when it made me feel really secure when it was time to present. While I'm home and I'm working, because I currently work from home as well. So I usually have my daughter review the material. I do a test run quite a few times, and I really strongly believe that it should be repeated multiple times. You should continuously study the material, so that way when it's time to present or it's time to engage in certain conversation, even if it's with interviews, that's going to help build that confidence. So it's very, very important to speak with someone that's able to give you that constructive feedback, positive reinforcement, or anything that you may need. So that way, like I mentioned, you'll be ready to present. Concept clarity. So what happens when we explain, I'll be honest, while preparing for law school exams, I basically felt like, how can I get this information to stick, right? I often learn faster when explaining rules to peers than when reading the cases. And talking out loud, as I mentioned prior, a lot of these things sometimes is going to seem like a repeat because they all pretty much tie in together. But talking out loud is very important. However, if you choose to take your exam or if you're studying for a piece of material and it requires for you to have a proctor, talking out loud, I had to learn the hard way that is actually a violation against proctor rules. So I would not recommend talking out loud. But a person that speaks out loud, such as myself, I'm able to retain information. I'm able to process. Basically, it's just how my process system works. But in some cases, when you're using a proctor, I would really, really highly recommend that if you need to be able to speak out loud, when studying your material, it's better to go into a testing center or something like that, or just practice saying it to yourself. And that's pretty much what I did. I started practicing saying it to myself because it's just the way my process system works when it comes to clarity and retaining information as well. But those are some of the risks that comes with talking out loud. So just be mindful of that if that is one of your techniques that you use. And so the next slide we're going to talk a little bit about is retention. Stories and conversation does help improve memory, dialogue that ties into your knowledge experience, and a manual fades, and that's how the conversation basically sticks. Retention comes from making connections. When we remember to talk about, especially when it ties into stories and interactive examples and a manual fade, that's when it helps build conversation. So retention is important, and as I mentioned in the previous slides as well, just repeat, practice, practice, practice. You can also use other types of aids. You can use some examples. Recording, right? You can, if you have a recorder on your computer, or you can also use your audio. These are techniques and electronic technologies that you can use that can help as well. So if you're studying alone and you don't have the convenience to have someone help you through your process, then you can always create an audio. You can always use other types of tools like recording yourself, which is so important. And then you'll be able to go back and listen and say, okay, all right, I see exactly where I need to work on, what mistakes occurred during my test run, and just pretty much continue to practice until you'll be able to retain that information firsthand. So real world applications. So you'll see a conversational learning everywhere, right? It's in education, it's when tutoring, study circles, and workplace through mentoring and peer shadowing. In technology, where conversations like AI makes training interactive. And basically, as I mentioned, I know I'm going to probably keep saying this in every slide because, as I mentioned, everything ties together. These are real world applications when mentoring and shadowing and compliance discussions, technology, interactive training. These things will help you in real world experiences when it comes to learning and having conversation. Okay, call to action. So if we want to accelerate learning, we need spaces where people don't just consume information. They talk it out loud. So here's my challenge. The next time you learn something new, try teaching or discussing it with someone else. You'll be amazed at how much more the information sticks. Because conversations just is not about sharing information. It creates transformation. It creates a space where everyone is learning. Everyone is learning. We're all interacting with each other. I'm teaching you, you're teaching me. I'm studying different ways. All of it is so vital to the process of how you quickly retain information. So just keep that in mind too. Okay, so I wanted to just wrap this up by saying that I really appreciate you guys taking the time out to listen to my presentation. Thank you so much for joining me in the conversation today. And I look forward to continuing dialogue. If you have any more questions, concerns, my email address is listed right here on the slide, as well as my LinkedIn information. Please feel free to reach out to me if there's something you want to discuss, if you need a little bit more clarity in terms of conversational learning. And thank you so much. And you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Chanel Daniels, for your amazing presentation. Let's hear from our next panelist. Rajana Matra will be speaking about alternative credentials, skills that matter in today's job market, and unpacking the value of certification, boot camps, and microlearning. So let me give her the floor.
Hi, thank you so much for having me today. Once again, I want to appreciate ADollarClass for having me join in and speaking at this very important event. I am someone who is so passionate about learning, so I'm so excited to be a part of this panel today. Okay, so just making sure.
Thank you, guys.
So first and foremost, thank you so much once again for having me. My name's Rajana Matra. I'm going to be speaking on alternative credentials and skills that matter in today's job market. In essence, I think that it's very important that we have a conversation about alternative skills or alternative ways that we can learn so that we can continue to expand in the career, in our jobs going forward. So before I get into my session, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about my story and a bit about my experience. So over 10 years ago, I entered the workplace with no degree, no certifications, and not much of a resume. In fact, I didn't really know what a resume was. I was young, I was single, navigating a life and a world in which I had never been in before. Most of my learning came through experience, that is, lived in experience, working from managing calendars for CEOs, putting out fires and operations, and playing every role in the book from front desk to strategic support. I came in as a completely blank slate and I kept learning on the job. So, and that's a huge reason why this conversation matters so much and so deeply to me, because the truth is, degrees open doors, but skills keep them open. And that's the future we're here to talk about today. Okay, so there are limits of traditional credentials. I want to talk about a real lived in experience and story that I have from a colleague. So I know a small business owner who runs a recreational RV rental company, no college degree, barely finished high school, no website, and yet they're running their family business successfully for over the past 10 years. It provides for their entire household. That's a strong reminder. A degree matters, but they're not the only path to success, right? So talent is bigger than a diploma. I want us to look at also the statistics. Research shows an IBM dropped degree requirements for 50% of US jobs. And another analysis shows that nearly 1 in 5 job postings no longer list a degree requirement on LinkedIn. What does that tell us? Traditional degrees can't always keep up with pace of change. They don't measure adaptability or resilience. 2 skills every employer needs, right? We need to be adaptable. We need to be able to grow in this marketplace, especially with the advancement of technology, the advancement of ourselves. So when you're limiting yourself to just one degree path or just taking on the basics of going for the degree alone, you're pretty much stopping yourself from being able to expand beyond your own potential. So something I really want you to take away from today is that a diploma can show you what you know, but it does not show how you lead when things go to show, when it's time to hit the road. It doesn't show your experience. It doesn't show how you adapt in a situation. All right, so the next slide talks about the rise of skills based on hiring. In operations, with my experience in strategic operations and management, I've watched hiring decisions happen real time, which means I see folks who either get declined or get advanced. And a lot of those skill sets, or a lot of people who do get advanced, it's not so much just based on their credentials. Folks might come in with master's degrees or even, bachelor's, and some folks just come in with real lived-in experience. But that doesn't always guarantee that they'll get the position, right? More often than not, the choice was not about the best degree. It was about who had the best skills and the best assets so that they could deliver what we were looking for today, right? So I've seen candidates chosen before because they walked in already knowing real skill sets with Salesforce, Excel, HubSpot. That's just to name a few skill sets, right? And I don't want to just talk about the hard skill sets, which is what a degree will give us, right? A college degree will definitely guarantee and certify that we have our backing. But there's also those top soft skills, right? There's leadership, responsibility, self-motivation, all of the things that make it so that you're a well-rounded candidate. And if you're not well-rounded in all ways, or if you're just dependent on one or the other, which is the hard skill versus the soft skill, you might not be guaranteed to have a strong standing in getting that position, right? So data shows that skill-based hires stay 9% longer than degree-based hires, and that's per the Boston Consulting Group, right? And another data shows that hiring boosts representation for up to 19% plus Black candidates and 24% women, and that's per Harvard Business School. So as an insight from an operations perspective, this makes sense, right? Skills-based hiring lowers turnover, improves diversity, and ensures people can execute strategy immediately, right? We're not looking for people who just have just the bare minimum at this point of just the degree. And we're also not looking for somebody who comes in not willing to learn. We're looking for people who are adaptable, willing to change, wanting to change, and wanting to grow within the role. So something that employers often ask when I've worked with CEOs or owners is they don't just ask, where did you study? What degree did you get? That's kind of extra information a lot of the times. They'll ask, can you get to work? What can you do? What have you shown to have done in the past to really be able to elevate our company in the way that we need you to? All right. So I really want to talk about the benefit of alternative credentials, right? Certifications can build so much confidence and credibility. Yeah, when I first discovered certifications, it was like opening a whole new world for me. I began by first earning a certificate as a CAPM, so in project management, and then I went for my Salesforce certification. So doing this didn't just add lines to my resume, it really boosted my confidence in the job field and market. And in terms of operations, it definitely made me feel a lot more as if I had the experience needed to be able to lead and impact in the way that I felt would make me a strong candidate and leader. Right. And the thing is, certifications didn't just open the door for me. I've seen it open the door for other colleagues in the professional field. And so some data shows that in the massive open online course, learners who share certifications see a 6% increase in job matches, right? And workers with proven AI skills earn about 23% more than those with only degrees. Once again, that's per the Boston Consulting Group. So with that in mind, I want us to be aware that credentials don't replace experience, right? They amplify it. They accelerate growth, increase competitiveness, and help align people with the roles they want. They pretty much give you that confidence, once again, to put you in the position so that you're able to get to where you need to get to as quickly as possible. So you're able to upscale yourself. Yeah. So something I want you to take away from today in this conversation with me is think of certifications like going to the gym, right? You already have a body that's capable, but training makes it sharper, stronger, and ready for more. Okay. So I want us to talk about, once again, the importance of verifiable data and certifications across different industries. Now, I might come from an operations strategic management perspective, but I want to emphasize that there are so many different kinds of certifications that you can get into, no matter what industry you're interested in. For technology, a lot of folks are interested in Security Plus or AI fundamentals. In finance, it can be QuickBooks, FMVA, things of that sort that really help to advance you in the way that you need to go to where be able to work within a company or just in general, right? If you're able to advance yourself with these credentials and really add on different certifications wherever your specific industry is, you'll really be thought of as a leader. You'll be looked at as someone who is a strong asset, not only to yourself, but also to the company. Right? So with those certifications, what can you do now? You can show that you have proof to your skill set. You're backed up, right? So I want to talk about a story that recently happened for me directly. So recently, a recruiter reached out to me about a project management role. And the first question wasn't about my degree. It wasn't even about my certifications. They actually asked, do you have a dashboard or portfolio that shows your lived experience? That moment, obviously, it really stuck with me. And it's why I wanted to talk about it today. Because in a stack of resumes, everyone can look similar. But when you can show proof, a dashboard, a certification, a digital badge, you really stand out competitively in the job market. And in terms of ongoing learning, it is so important as we are that we do continue to get those certifications to build our credentials up. Yeah. So data shows once again that 76% of employers expect to use digital credentials in hiring by 2025. And that's per the World Economic Forum. And candidates with verified credentials are 27% more likely to be hired. And more than that, employee turnover costs up to 2 times annual salary. Verifiable skills reduce hiring risk. Yeah. So when a company feels that you're well equipped with the skill set, they're not going to as quickly look at your what you're presenting to them and assess that you don't have what you need. They're actually going to feel more confident with you. They're going to feel more comfortable. They're going to think, I can trust this person. And when it comes to learning and advancing and really using those skill sets in the real world, it's so important that you have your verifiable skills to show your backing and your experience, so that when you're going forward, you have that confidence to get wherever you need to get going forward, right? So verification, once again, it builds trust for employers, it lowers risks, and it speeds up decision making. That was a huge part of the hiring process when we do look at strategic management. For candidates, it's confidence. You don't just walk in saying you know something, you can actually prove it. And that's really significant and really impactful. And it leaves a lasting impression when you do have those skill sets. So, in essence, proof builds trust, and trust creates opportunity. Yeah. And we're all about growth and opportunity here. All right, so let's talk about the future of alternative credentials. I get so excited about this topic. I'm so sorry. I love that technology is advancing the way that it is. And you want to know why? That means that it's giving us the chance to grow and adapt in ways that we, I think, as a people and as a society have not had the opportunity to, right? So the amazing fact is that I know that a lot of people get scared with the advancement of AI and technology, but let's take a step back. Let's look at the actual careers and opportunities that it's creating, right? So even though there's the projected percentage that 85 million jobs will be lost with the advancement of AI, there's also the opportunity for 97 million to be created by 2030. And that's once again per the World Economic Forum. Yeah. So a story that I have to back this up with the advancement of AI and the importance of continuing to learn and advance yourself in this way is I know leaders at companies like DuPont who invest heavily in LinkedIn learning and boot camps for their employees. Why do we think that is? Yeah, that's because they know that future competitiveness depends on continuous reskilling. They are continuously working to improve their employees so that their employees will be strong competitors and strong assets for their team. So even if you don't need new skills today, you'll need them tomorrow, right? So if you continue to advance yourself the way that you need to, maybe integrating some AI or technology, you'll really be showing that you're a strong candidate, and you'll also really strengthen your own personal learning journey. So in essence, the future of work is a skills marketplace. yeah, powered by AI, digital credentials, and lifelong learning. Employers will match people to roles based on skills, not resumes anymore. Yeah, so I know that we look at the future and we're uncertain, but I want us to take away that the future doesn't belong to the person with the fanciest resume, right? It belongs to the lifelong learner. And just as I close up for today, this is a quote from myself. Think of yourself as an asset. Every skill, every credential, every lived experience makes that asset more valuable, right? So, as I'm going to say my ending, here's my challenge to you. Okay. Think of yourself as an asset. Your degree, your certifications, your experiences, they all refine that asset. But the foundation is you. Your ability to adapt, to listen, to lead under pressure, to keep learning, that's something that makes you valuable in any room, in any role, in any future. The future belongs to lifelong learners like ourselves, and every skill you build, every credential you earn, every real experience you gain makes you not just employable, but unstoppable. Okay. So I really want to give a big thank you to ADollarClass for hosting this important summit. Once again, I said it speaks directly to me and my experience. And I have a lot of love and appreciation for the advancement of learning in any platform. And I want to thank you all for listening and engaging. And I look forward to any questions and to learning from this conversation as well.
Thank you so much, Donna Mapper, for your outstanding presentation. Let's go into our Q&A session. Attendees will get the chance to ask our amazing and intelligent panelists and the keynote speaker questions. So let me give Yusuf, Ramadan, and Elizabeth Ngo the floor.
Hello, everyone. This is Yusuf. I'm your co-moderator for today's event, and I will be taking questions from you and run this Q&A session to answer all of your questions. So let's just get right into it. So our first question here from LinkedIn to Eric. Mr. Eric, is Eric there? Great. How do you envision blockchain shaping education, such as through certifications or increased transparency? You're muted, Mr. Eric.
Oh, there I am. So it's already doing that. That's a great question. In a number of ways, and I'll tell you a quick story. I was brought into a project in Southeast Asia, and it was a company that employed like trades folks and engineers, electricians, and they had a college in the area that was destroyed by, I think it was either a earthquake or a volcano eruption. I forget which one it is, but it was destroyed. So all of a sudden they saw a huge influx of folks that had degrees from this college. Well, because all the records were destroyed and they couldn't verify, who attended. So folks that didn't attend the college used that as a very unfortunate way to, try and benefit from the lack of credentialing. But if we're able to store our certifications and our degrees on a blockchain, no matter what happens to the physicality of the college, the information still exists, is still there in a digital form, in a decentralized manner. So even if the servers are destroyed, right, they still exist. So degrees, certifications are being put on blockchains, they're being put in NFTs. And that also means that if another employer or future employer wants to verify the actual certification, the authenticity of that degree, they don't have to contact anyone. All they have to do is access the blockchain, whichever blockchain that it's using, and verify that it's there because it was put there. It's immutable. It can't be changed, and they can instantly verify the fact that they have this certification or this degree. So it's a very, very powerful way to verify and create authenticity for degrees, certifications. It's being used for property titles and for deeds, right? I mean, Haiti had the earthquake in 2010. There were a flood of people putting in, you know, the fact that they own this house, you know, and sometimes there was 10, 20 folks putting in a request for the same house, but it's because the records were destroyed in the earthquake. But if it was on a blockchain, which is actually also discussed in my book, then no matter if the records office was destroyed, the papers were destroyed, the computers were destroyed, if it's on a decentralized network, no matter what happens, it'll still exist. So that's being done. I think it's a very powerful way to use blockchain technology to improve record keeping and improve authenticity of so much information that would be beneficial to everybody in the world.
Well, that is very insightful. Thank you so much, Mr. Eric, for this. Let's move on to our next question from LinkedIn as well, but for Scott. Mr. Scott, there we go. What mindset do you think young professionals should build early and thrive in both the technology and the industry fields, the education fields, sorry?
That's a great question. I answer that on Facebook page. When I first started, after my initial recovery, my priorities were actually just on getting better. But once I started speaking, I relied on technology or social media to get the word out of my story and my recovery and my speaking career. So I mainly use Facebook and Instagram. I'm not much of a TikToker because I'm an old man in comparison. So I can't keep up with social media, but I use that to get word out of my story, my program. As far as on-stage technology, PowerPoint, slideshows, and I always give this analogy. So who's your favorite band? I'll say in my case, it's Aerosmith. Would you rather listen to a CD by Aerosmith, or would you rather, be in person? Would you rather see them live? So I don't use slides or anything like that. I want all the attention on me, which sounds kind of silly. But I want people to focus on me, not slides behind me or anything like that. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that is very good. Thank you so much, Mr. Scott. And another question to you, Scott, but this time from YouTube. Sometimes decision making is very hard, especially under pressure. What can help me to take the right decision in such situation?
Well, I thank you very much for that question. I can't speak for any field other than my own, but I've been speaking and sharing my story so often that I often get the same questions. So it's not anything unusual. I mean, I get the same questions. Do I drink anymore? Do I do this? Do I do that? How do I make responsible decisions? I have set answers for all that. So that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you very much, Mr. Scott. Let's move on to another question, this time for our speaker, Chanel. So, Chanel, can you share some success stories of individuals who have benefited from your conversational learning approach? Chanel, can you come on stage?
Chanel is having some difficulties. I'm just going to cover it for her. So can you repeat that question again, please?
Okay, the question was, can you share some successful stories of individuals who benefited from conversational learning approaches and the conversation?
Yeah, I'll just myself as an example. Over the years, I've been able to develop my ability to have conversation with people. and it has been a huge success. And in form of having a conversation with someone, the person is telling me that I just enjoy talking to you. That gives me a lot of smile because few years ago I wasn't that way. So my success story was boiled down to having conversation with people, getting their feedback, and also learning from there. So that has really built my ability to have conversation with people. I could speak with someone for more than 3 hours, 4 hours, and the person is not going to get bored because I have so much to say. I have so much to talk about in terms of different facets of life, and that has really helped me. So it's a great success story to me, and it's something that our audience can also build. It didn't just come all of a sudden. It's something I had to build over time, talking with people, interacting with people, learning from there, listening to them, and all of that. And that has really made me to be someone who could have a conversation with someone, not just a boring conversation, but conversation that could speak at every area, every facet of life of that individual. I don't know if that answered the question.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sheraton. There is another question for Rajana from YouTube. So, Rajana, can you come on stage, please? Perfect. A lot of people seem to be interested in your speech, actually. So, the first question, for people outside of the art industry, what are ways that they can show off their portfolio? Something like the tech industry or the other industry.
So for people who are outside, ways that they can show off their portfolio is definitely through making sure that they are taking on, they're presenting their portfolio through either Canva or something inventive. They can try to showcase through action and visibility. They can take on projects, internships, voluntary roles, and then they can apply those real skills to the real world. I've often found that when I see folks with, as I think our first speaker mentioned, voluntary experiences, shows a company that they are a candidate who's serious, who really cares about what they do. So I think by showcasing that work in different areas, even if you don't have that real lived-in experience, anything that a young professional comes up with that they can think of as contributing to their professional growth can very most likely be shown to a company if they just present it in a certain way. So they have to really show through action, visibility, volunteering, projects, internships. I also think it's very important that they build an online presence. When I was starting out, I had no clue what LinkedIn was, right? So I learned along the way over the past few years, building an audience, networking, just reaching out to mentors and having questions like this and visiting summits and conversations like this will really develop them to be able to put in concrete together a good portfolio in their own adaptable artistic way, but also for a company to engage with that information.
Yeah, that's really good. Also, thank you so much. Another question, actually, from YouTube as well. When it comes to jobs that don't require degrees or certifications, what are some ways that someone were to show proof of the real world experience, or what skills should they put in the resume as an applicant?
Yeah, I mean, I've mentioned soft skills are so important to also mention, but I did already explain too about online presence. I think that it comes down to your industry And especially it comes down to your own working experience. I know I mentioned, of course, volunteering, projects, anything that you can do to show that experience. It's very helpful. Put yourself in rooms where you've never been before. I really challenge our audience to do their best to have conversations, to go to different summits, to make themselves presentable, put themselves out there for internships, and really try to see who they can contact or what they can do. I'm not sure how young or older audiences, go to your high school advisor or community service or local community city hall, and even to different conferences that they host for businesses or small businesses. They're often looking for young professionals to come out there and make their name. I'm often at a panel or at one of those venues or events or running those. So we are honestly always looking for people in that way.
Yeah, definitely young people are a valuable asset for any company. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to next question from YouTube to Sean Trees. Hello.
Hello.
So the question is, how can individuals prioritize self-care and develop effective coping mechanisms for managing trauma-related stress?
So, could you repeat the question one more time?
So, how can individuals prioritize self-care and develop coping mechanisms for trauma-related stress?
Okay, so I like to think that when you're trying to establish a healthy self-care routine, especially as it pertains to managing trauma, you have to start with self. Oftentimes that means making difficult decisions, like taking time away from work, or again, establishing those boundaries with your loved ones, your friends, your coworkers, and saying no, so that you can actually start to put those things into practice. You may not know what you like to do, what makes you happy, or what brings you joy. So you essentially start creating that safe space for yourself in order to explore these things, such as prayer, meditation, or journaling, or even taking a few days off work to maybe schedule a day spa, if you're able to do something along those lines, attending church more, or starting with finding a therapist who can actually help you formulate a good care plan for yourself moving forward, and managing those coping and establishing those coping skills.
That's really useful. Thank you very much. Let's move on to another question from Facebook to Mr. Eric. Hello again. Mr. Eric, what role do you think cryptocurrencies will play in shaping the future of business and professional development?
Well, that's a whole class by itself. Before I answer that, let me say this. I think all of the presenters here were fantastic. I learned a lot from all of them, and I think that the beauty of this conference was that we all came from different perspectives, and I think that the learnings here were very rich and very deep. When it comes to the so thank you all for being excellent, and I'm honored to share the stage with all of you. With regards to the crypto and the blockchain and the impact on businesses, it's profound, because here's the thing. When you look at businesses, right, the key personal interaction all is based on transactions, right? Every business deals with transactions, whether it's a for-profit, non-profit, educational institution, what have you. It's all based on transactions. And blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies are based on creating more efficient, more sustainable, and more authentic transactions, right? So every possible business could have benefit from blockchain technology. And this is the way I describe that, is by using the internet, the growth of the internet. Internet 1.0 was the internet of information, right? You just read a screen and you use information to do whatever. Internet 2.0 was the internet of communication. That's when social media came into play, and all those other things were kind of part of our environment. Internet 3.0, which is the current one with blockchain, is the internet of value, and value is the benefit of transactions. Now, when you have internet 2.0, you may say, well, I use the internet to buy things, to go on to Amazon or to go on to Alibaba and to buy things. Okay, well, you do, but you have to bring in a third party, a financial institution, a credit card, debit card, or PayPal to do that. In blockchain technology with cryptocurrencies, you don't. Transactions are really the way we interface with each other from a business perspective, and blockchain technology, like the internet, can have impact for every single business and every single industry that currently exists today.
Yeah, that's actually amazing and very informative. Thank you very much, Mr. Eric. One last question before we move on to our next co-moderator for Rajana. A question from LinkedIn. So, Rajana, you mentioned that a degree matters, but not more than talent. For professional youngsters just starting, what's the best way to showcase the talent so it really stands out from other resumes?
Thank you so much. It's such an important question for young professionals. I think the best way to showcase talent is once again through action and through visibility. You really have to take initiative to show your online presence. You have to be active out there, currently networking, putting your portfolio together. And there are so many ways too that you can put a portfolio together. It doesn't have to just be with LinkedIn. It could also be through TikTok, through Instagram, through creating another portfolio on Notion. There's so many creative ways that we have technology and websites now in which you can showcase your online presence. I also really advocate that you show your soft skills wherever you can, especially on LinkedIn. They have the option of toggling soft skills and mentioning that in your resume. Those are some good strong keywords. But it really comes down to, your ability to communicate, adapt, teamwork. These are often skills that will set you apart, especially when it comes to technical skills. So it's interesting when we look at, and I'm kind of going on a tangent here, when we look at technical job roles, a lot of them are, looking for the security or the AWS or anything of that sort. But it's also important that, as I've mentioned before, you're a well-rounded candidate. So we want to see that you have those soft skills as well as those hard skills. And also, as I always love to say, take on some projects, take on some internships, volunteer, put any relevant experience onto your resume or onto wherever you plan to go. And that will take you so much further than you would believe in the future.
Yeah, definitely some things to consider when writing a resume. Thank you very much, Mrs. Dragana. So now we will continue the questions, but with the other co-moderator. Please, Elizabeth, come on stage.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wachi Elizabeth. I'm also the co-moderator, standing in with Yusuf. Nice to meet you, everyone, and thank you for that great speech. It was so inspiring. So the first question is from Sheikh Hassan. It says it's directed to Mr. Osaritin, and it says, Osaritin, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for human-computer interaction to improve learning and engagement in education?
All right, I wasn't expecting a question, but I'm very much ready. So, can you repeat that again, please?
It says, what do you see as the biggest opportunities for human-computer interaction to improve learning and engagement in education?
Yeah, computer interaction is something that's a bit new to a lot of persons, and there's a lot of opportunities available in that area. And just like what Eric talked about, artificial intelligence, so human computer interaction have a little bit of that. And if you look at some of the things that we do in learning, especially after the COVID-19, people want to learn in a very swift form. And you, as a human computer interaction specialist or someone who is enthusiastic about human computer interactions, you want to make sure that you want to create an avenue where people who interact with the computer and also have a good relationship with themselves, because that is what human computer interaction is talking about. And we've seen that being implemented in some of the devices that we use, mobile app. You've seen how the UI and the US is interactive, giving a very wonderful experience for people. So if you bring that into the educational platform, so it therefore means that people will have more exciting opportunity learning. People will have reason to come to class because most of the experience that they are being getting is incredible. Take for instance, if you have the use of take for instance, you have the use of virtual reality or even augmented reality in the classroom, where you could actually take classes in a very virtual environment. That is incredible. It's a different dimension of learning. So those are some of the things the human computer interaction is talking about, and is something that everyone should be ready for. We already seen it in our mobile app, having those interactions, seeing the user interface and all of that. So there's a whole lot of things to benefit in human interaction space. I don't know if that has any
Thank
question.
you so much for thank you so much for answering that question. So moving on, the next question. This is for this is for Kendrick, Miss Candle. I'm sorry if I'm correct. It says managing trauma. The speaker says managing trauma. The speaker said spiritually and attending church as a group really help. Can she explain further?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so when we talk about spirituality and attending church, we're talking about two interconnected areas of healing. Like for spiritual connection, spirituality, it provides a sense of grounding and meaning, because trauma can often make life feel chaotic. So you get that sense of grounding, that sense of peace, hope and comfort. You know, believing in something greater than yourself can also make those struggles feel more bearable. There's also the ritual and structure that comes with the spiritual connection. Prayer and meditation or scripture reading, they create calming routines that counteract the unpredictability of trauma responses. And I feel like the most important aspect of the spiritual component is that spiritual teachings actually help individuals work through guilt, anger, or resentment that's tied to traumatic experiences, which also leads to forgiveness and release. And when we speak about church as a healing community, we want to talk about the shared experience of being around people with similar values who create a sense of belonging and can also reduce isolation. There's also the collective support, which involves the congregation offering meals and childcare and financial aid alongside people who feel encouraged. Many people also find that church is a safe space for expression, such as worship, music, and testimonies that you can actually give that helps trauma survivors express emotion without being in a difficult setting where they may not otherwise be able to articulate those things. There's also the accountability and encouragement that comes with being in a group setting such as church, and that fosters resilience and through encouragement and prayer circles and community care. So it's like saying that trauma is not just a mental or emotional burden; it also affects the spirit. So when you nurture your faith by staying connected to a supportive faith community, you can rebuild that trust, regain hope, and feel less alone during the healing journey. I hope that answers the question.
All right, I think Elizabeth is breathing. Let me take over for her right now until she comes back. So let me check here the questions. There's one more question for you, Mrs. John Trees, from Chris Martin on YouTube. Can you share some strategies for creating a supportive environment that encourages individuals to open up about their mental health struggles?
Absolutely. The first thing you want to do is you want to create a safe space for yourself, somewhere that feels safe for you. This could be home, in your room. This could be a man cave. For some people, they find external environments such as running on a track or being in a space where they feel safe at the time. So establishing that safe space. Then you want to, if you don't have someone that you trust, that you can confide in, the first thing I recommend you do is make a list of things you think you need from a therapist, someone who could actually help you navigate through the healing journey. When you make that list, you're able to use things such as ChatGPT or even doing a simple Google search and using your insurance provider as well to look on the websites to see which therapists match the criteria that you set forth for yourself. After that, engage in the practices that the therapist recommends. Case in point, I have a great therapist. I love her. It's awesome. One of the things that she told me to do in order to disrupt my thoughts from when feeling anxious or I feel the onset of an anxiety or panic attack is to shake. And I thought it was hilarious until I actually tried it and it started to work. So I definitely recommend working with your therapist. And if the things that they recommend don't work, tell them that they don't work. I guarantee you they'll be more than willing to help you work through these things and find a solution that works best for you. One of the fun things I'll leave you with, two things actually. The first thing would be boundaries. It's important to set boundaries, no matter where you are, what you're doing, or where you are in your healing journey. That's what the people who are closest to you. It's important to have boundaries with your therapist. It's important to have boundaries with your coworkers, your colleagues, even your children. Establish boundaries and be prepared to say no, even when it feels uncomfortable, because that's just you getting used to actually speaking up for yourself and establishing a solid boundary. And the last thing I'll say is have spiritual practice. Have some sort of routine that you can actually lean towards, whether that be prayer in the morning or a simple 5-minute meditation. A great app that I recommend is Insight Timer. It's awesome. It has several different guided meditations and meditative sounds that you can use to meditate. Taking a short walk in the morning, 5 or 10 minutes, makes a huge difference. I know that was a bit of a wordy response, but I hope that answered it.
Such some touching words, Ms. Chantries. I hope everyone benefits from these words. So I see we have a lot more questions, but we are glad to answer them all if you send them on our social media, on our email, or to our speakers directly. But for now, we are going back to Sarah Lorenzo to give some closing remarks on this event.
Thank you so much, Yusuf. I'd like to once again thank our amazing speakers today, Eric Guthrie, Scott Maloney, Shantari Kendrick, Rajana Matre, and Chanel Daniels. Thank you for taking time out of busy schedules to be a part of this wonderful webinar. We've all learned so much from you, and thank you again. And then I'd like to thank everyone who took the time to join this webinar. I'm sure you guys have learned a lot, and we will be having more alternative learning seminars and summits later on here. So thank you for joining us. And I'm sure you guys have learned more about becoming a lifelong learner and how important it is to always learn, and that even if you have a degree with more than that, you can go beyond the degree. So let me give the floor to our convener with closing. Thank you again for joining us.
All right. So thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you for our wonderful speakers who have joined today's event. Eric, we have Scott, we have Kendra, we have Mantra, we also have Chane for joining us today. So we have other events coming up. We have a 12 months event lined up from now till 2026. So if you also want to be part of our event, you can always join us live by the coming months. So we have in September, and we also have in October, November, and December. So you may also be seeing some of the speakers that we have here today on today's event. So I'm just going to bring all of our speakers to the on stage for them to share with us their final word before we close on today's summit. All right, Eric, you're welcome.
Thank you, and once again,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. Your final word? Yeah, go ahead.
Final word is this: thank you for giving myself and my fellow speakers the opportunity to share with this very powerful and positive community. What I'm going to say, what I said in my entire speech: if you do these three things, you'll be able to further your professional development, learn, network, and use. Right? If you remember the three words that I said, those three words, you'll progress. Whether it's entrepreneurial, professional development, you'll progress in your journey. Thank you again.
All right, Scott, final word.
All right. I want to apologize, Eric. I'm going to piggyback. I'm going to repeat what you said. Thank you, everybody, for the chance to address everyone. And now I'm not going to say, make positive choices, even though I want you to. Think E plus R equals O. If there's a negative event in your life, that's E. How you respond, how you react to any negative event is going to dictate the outcome. So you can handle what's going to happen to you. How you react to an event is going to dictate the outcome. Thank you, everybody.
All right, Kendrick, final word for us, and thereafter, Matra, you can come in.
Thank you all very much for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to the other speakers and just being a part of this event. My last words would be to listen to your trauma. Listen to your trauma. Remember that your emotions are valid, they are real, and they are speaking to you, and that they deserve the floor to tell you exactly. Listen to your trauma and stop voluntarily before you are stopped involuntarily.
All right. So, So, Margaret, final word.
At the end of the day, credentials are powerful, but never forget the most valuable asset is you. Think of yourself as that asset. Every skill, every credential, every lived experience only makes you more valuable. So keep learning, keep growing, and keep showing the world that what you can do. And thank you.
All right. So thank you everyone for today's event. We're coming to an end. Like I said before, you can always join us for other exciting programs. We're also going to be bringing on board some other incredible speakers for September, also in November and December. And you may also be seeing some of the speakers later on in the year. So once again, thank you very much, and do have a great day.
Bye.